Hey, what's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This is JB right here, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Just want to give a shout out to the rest of the crew. I'm talking about Shad, Kelvin, and Jermaine, who will be producing new content, new videos, new takes coming up very soon. And for everyone who's tuning in, I hope that you support Behind the Bench, become a subscriber, and help make this podcast the best that it can possibly be. Now check this out. Check this out. Just want to take a couple of moments to talk about the upcoming season, and this has been a reoccurring theme for a long time, for a lot of years, man. Really going on 2 decades. Tell you the truth, since the 1990s, I'm talking about when you start talking about, the NBA, the talent, which teams or the most have been the most dominant. But really, it's really about the conferences. The Eastern Conference was the premier conference of the 90s because of the dominance of the Chicago Bulls. And then the 80s too, the Beast of the East, they used to call it. Um, but then in the 90s, the Western Conference was on par for the most part with the East, but the difference was the best team and the best player resided in the Eastern Conference. Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan. And then the 2000s, I would say at that point, the Western Conference, took the lead in terms of dominance, precedence, level of competition per se. When Kobe and Shaq and Kobe won 3 straight championships, you know. But when you look at what's going on in the league now, the Eastern Conference is miles ahead of what it was by 2018. I mean, it's a very competitive conference now. In many ways, when you start talking about the top 4 seeded teams in the East and the West, you can argue that the Eastern Conference is better per se. Per se, although the last 2 champions have represented the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets and the Golden State Warriors. And then you had the Lakers in 2020, and then you had Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference and Toronto in the Eastern Conference. But as of right now, entering this season, when you look at the free agent moves that have taken place um, since free agency period started back in July, and as well as some trades that have taken place, and then you're seeing the young stars emerge and improving year by year. When you look at this Western Conference, it's going to be even more competitive. It's going to be even more, I don't want to say unpredictable, but there's no shoe in. When I say there's no shoe in, I'm talking about from top to bottom. Like, um, we could see a situation again this year where no team in the league or in either conference will win 60 games. Um, it's not an issue of parity. It's really an issue of the bottom teams or understanding how to build their teams on a more appropriate fashion. Rather than going to extremes to improve, they're doing it incrementally, step by step, and that's what it takes. And it does take time, and it does take patience. And mainly, the foundational players will be acquired via the draft. And once you set the foundation, then everything else will fall in place for you. But when you look at this Western Conference, man, okay, the way I see it is this: you got 3 teams in the West that are either now going for it, throwing all their chips in, or you've had a couple teams that's been throwing their chips in basically the past 5 years or so, or as they call it, or as they deem it, win now. The two teams in LA, Lakers and Clippers, and the Phoenix Suns. But when you look at all these young teams on the rise, man, when you look at what the Sacramento Kings did last year, finishing the league, finishing the season as the number 3 seed in the West. When you see the Memphis Grizzlies, although they were dealing with internal issues with a superstar player, injuries to their starting center and backup center, they still finished the regular season as the number 2 seed. Two small market teams. New Orleans Pelicans was in first place by December of this past season, January of this past season. They were 23-12. They were sitting atop the conference. So they're giving you a preview, or is really as they call it, just beginning to introduce the talent that they have. You know what I mean? Like, word, it's just the tip of the iceberg. That's what I'm trying to say. Just the tip of the iceberg. And so that's 3 teams right there. Okay, then you still have the Golden State Warriors because their championship pedigree. Technically, you can't really count them out, but you figure they're probably reaching the end of their run that started really back in 2014, 2015. Okay, then Minnesota Timberwolves, they advanced to the playoffs last year. They have good young talent on their team, and veteran players on their team. And then you have teams that steadily improving through the draft. One team, OKC, Oklahoma City Thunder, was 1 game away from advancing to the playoffs, missing a number 2 pick of this past year's draft, Chet Holmgren, for the whole season. Okay, Houston Rockets have improved with the offseason moves that they made, and then bringing in an established coach like Ime Udoka, who led the Boston Celtics to the finals in 2022. So they've improved. And then the San Antonio Spurs, okay, they hit the jackpot. They selected number 1 pick of this year's draft, Victor Wembanyama. Okay, then you have the Lakers, then you have the Clippers, then you have Phoenix. And that's all before I mentioned the reigning world champions, the Denver Nuggets. So the way I see it is, this is the way I see it. The team, whoever that's going to be, if they have these 3 ingredients, they'll be ready. They'll be primed. A superstar entering their full prime. Young talent that they developed that has begun to emerge. Actually, then teams with at least 2 superstars, players on it. Depth on your roster, not just for the sake of depth, but depth featuring players who have a certifiable role for the team. Cohesion, chemistry. Those are the components. If you have 2 of those components, you'll be competitive per se, but in the end, I think you fall towards the back of the pack. Oh, and I forgot the Utah Jazz. I knew I forgot somebody. The Utah Jazz. I think they're going to be tremendous this year in terms of vying for a playoff spot. I think they will be very competitive. So the way I see it, man, how the West is going to be won is going to be based on that criteria. And like I say, until someone defeats the defending champion, they have to be the odds-on favorite to win the conference and take it from there until they are the throne. So I can't wait. I just want to throw that out there. This is JB, and until next time, BTB, Behind the Bench.